All right, we are here for the July 8th Committee of the Whole State of the Court. We have a half hour, people, because we've got to go over and see the Nishiwaki delegation. So just remind you all that we have a half hour. We have judges Carrie Murphy Richards and Jessica Grenier with us. So take it away, please.
First of all, we are also invited to stop by that reception, so we were already put on warning that we need to be done early. I am Judge Kara Murphy Richards. Judge Jessica Grenier is to my left. Please call us by our first names, especially in these kinds of situations. The very first slide we wanted to share with you tonight was a slide of our staff. Most of us spend far more waking hours with our work family than we do with our own family. And we learn a lot about your teammates when you go through adversity and change. And as some of you probably know, the court has been through some changes over the past year. Since we last presented, our staff has lost family members. We said goodbye to beloved pets who are family members for many of us. We said goodbye to more than one court user we had grown to love who lost his life to the grips of addiction to fentanyl and recently lost another one. We have shed a lot of tears together as a team. We've also celebrated engagements, we've celebrated retirements, we've welcomed new babies, and most recently we hired and will be welcoming a new judicial administrative officer who we are excited to introduce more publicly once HR finishes its work. Committed to open doors and complete transparency with our staff, Judge Grenier and I are both committed to regular and open door meetings. We have weekly leadership meetings with an interim judicial administrative officer and our supervisor. We have monthly staff meetings, and we have ongoing cross-training that's super important to us. So when somebody calls in sick, we have plenty of ways to fill that spot during the day to make sure that operations continue to flow smoothly. We are a strong team that has learned some valuable lessons. We are a team committed to staff appreciation and recognition. We are a team committed to team building events and appreciation lunches. And we're proud to be part of a team that's committed to caring for each other and those we serve. We could not do what we do if the other 14 members of our team did not do what they do. And years ago, we voted on a team mascot. I suggested the giraffes. I lost by one vote to the Incredibles. And so we have since then been known as the Incredibles. And I think that really sums up what we think about our team. Not all of them are pictured in this picture here because of our telework and flex time schedule, but we're super proud to be part of this work family.
And an extension of that is how proud we are of our student leadership in our community. And we are very, very honored to host the Renton Youth Traffic Court Team, which is a program that is based on restorative justice principles. And its intent is to educate teen drivers and to make our community whole when infractions happen or collisions happen in our community. This program allows teens from our local high school, so you have to be a Renton High School student to participate as a team member, to sit as the judge, as the advocates, as the mentors, and as the jury, and to hear real world traffic cases and make decisions about not only what will educate and enforce accountability for young learning drivers going forward in the future, but to do that in a way that really looks at restoring the community rather than just being punitive. So there are conditions that the teen drivers have to satisfy. If they do those, and they have 6 months to do that, they earn the benefit of a dismissal. Along the way, they're oftentimes participating as members of our youth traffic court jury. So they're in here in court listening and learning and absorbing what can happen when you do and don't follow the rules of the road. But they're also forming team bonds and membership. And so it's not surprising to have somebody who might come in and be ordered to attend as a jury member ask to stay and eventually become a part of the team. So we're very proud of the work that we do to educate young drivers in our community. We are also incredibly proud, and I'll try to not boast too much, but 3 of our team members are actually members of our state Washington Association of Youth Courts board. So they are state board members, which is an incredible honor for them, an opportunity to really engage at a high level on more intensive leadership training. They do attend as a team, including our board members as well as our regular team members, a state youth court conference on an annual basis. It's actually at Seattle University School of Law. And it's an incredible experience because it allows the students to actually be sitting in real law school classrooms. So they're not only engaging on justice-based principles at a young age, they're physically envisioning themselves as future law students and future attorneys.
Renton Community Court. You know, I could talk for hours about this program, but I will not because we have a reception to get to. With 26 graduates and another graduation around the corner, it is working. How do we know it is working? Because our recidivism rate is less than 8%, with an average of 27 point some percent done in the Washington State University study. I think it's actually 7.6%, but I rounded to less than 8. We have had 2 people in our program of all of our graduates who've gotten in any law enforcement interaction at all after they've graduated from the program. The success of our program is receiving both statewide and national attention. We received accolades from the National Center for Justice Innovation at our most recent regional retreat. And rather than going on about the details, I wanted to share, many of you have already seen this video. I just wanted to share a 70-second clip with you. One, because I think this clip summarizes our program, but more importantly, because it highlights many members of our team who aren't part of tonight's presentation, but they're an integral part of what we're doing. So, volume?
Most
There's no
days,
volume.
it doesn't feel like you've made a difference.
But there's subtitles.
And as a judge, most days, it's really frustrating.
It sounds like it's turned down very low.
Oh, it's turned down in here, Jason.
You can turn it up.
I was gonna say, if you want to
Yeah,
read
you won't
along
be able
with
to
it,
read,
you
but
can
you won't
do
be
that
you won't be
too.
able to hear the graduates in the back if you don't hear the voice, if you don't hear the sound, sorry. No.
Our magician in the back.
Most
is also working
days,
on it.
it doesn't feel like you've made a difference. And as a judge, most days,
Bad technology.
You know we're supposed to move the microphone towards it, but she did that.
It's working back there too.
Try again. Let's see what happens. But
Yeah.
nope.
most
He's
days,
got a copy back
it
there.
doesn't feel like you've made a difference.
Maybe we'll come back and show it towards the end, is that all
Okay.
right? We come back, can we loop back to it and show it when we talk about expanding resources? I do want to share that the team and the participants are so incredibly grateful for the support of city partners. When a graduate sees a city leader or a council member or the mayor at a community court graduation, it matters because what it says to our graduates are you matter. We believe in you, and it's something that many of them have never felt before. I know at least half of you have come to at least one of our graduations. I know oftentimes you leave before we start having to clean up and everything, but that is really where we hear the comments from graduates going, can you believe there was a councilwoman at my graduation? Like my own parents aren't even here today. So when you have the time, when you get that graduation announcement, if you have just a few moments to come down and give someone a round of applause, please consider joining us because they may not tell you when they're there, but it matters a lot when you are, and we appreciate it.
We are continuing to dedicate ourselves to working to serve the members of our community who are most vulnerable and recognizing that those impacts are felt amongst every member of our community. And that does include our work to reach individuals who are experiencing severe mental health crises. And that is the purpose behind our, pardon me, that is the purpose, excuse me, that is the purpose behind our mental health calendars.
Now doesn't
Sorry,
want to-
now it won't let me out. These calendars were designed to be a response to the mental health crisis that is not only a significant issue in our community, but many communities, and I would argue most, if not all, communities across Washington state. We recognize that there are conditions that make somebody unable to proceed in court proceedings. This is a term that was previously, this was termed as not competent to proceed. There is some work being done to modify the state law language that would now classify that person as being unable to proceed. But we recognize that regardless of how we label it, there are factors that render a person not able to meaningfully understand the nature of the process in our court system and to engage and to assist their attorney in appearing for court. Over the past 2 years, we have seen a seismic shift statewide in how not only are we as judges directed to respond to these types of cases, but also the resources that are becoming available to us as judges in order to respond to these cases. This would have looked very different 5 years ago, but today we have the ability to connect our court users to community resources such as forensic evaluators, forensic navigators, medical assistants, housing assistants, restoration processes. So if somebody's found unable to proceed in court, the court has to decide whether or not to order that person receive restoration treatment to restore their ability to proceed in their court proceedings. This typically 5 years ago would have happened almost unilaterally in custody, and that person would have been detained. Now we have resources available to allow that person to be in the community with supervision, with assistance, with supportive measures to attempt to have them restored on a community basis where they would hopefully be expected to function if they're able to be restored and to respond to their criminal case. So we have a lot of different tools that are now in our tool belt that we were unable to use previously. But the goal is to identify those who can be restored in custody versus those who can be restored out of custody, in order to be most efficient with our court resources and ensure that we're balancing the need to respond to this need in our community with that need to also hold individuals accountable. Our court is also represented on a statewide level through the True Blood Committee. You may or may not have heard of the True Blood case. It was a pretty landslide changing case in the scope of mental health law in our state. But we do engage with the work of that committee to ensure that we are most up to date on what those resources are, how they're being administered, and what our upcoming legislative changes look like.
We are not on the True Blood Committee. She is on the True Blood Committee. That we'll share a little bit more about with you in just a few moments. Pierre Kent, Jessica and I both consider ourselves to be incredibly compassionate and very empathetic women and attorneys and judges, but neither one of us know what it is like to be a person of color. Neither one of us know what it is like to be a person without housing. Neither one of us knows what it's like to be without food for our family. Neither one of us knows what it's like to be deep in the grip of drug addiction and what comes along with that. When a judge tells someone to stop using, go find a place to live, go get a job, we are met daily with words of compliance and agreement. Yes, Your Honor. Of course, Your Honor. I'll get it done, Your Honor. But what the person is thinking, and reasonably so, is you have no idea who I am, what I'm going through. How can you possibly know what I need? And they would leave the court feeling more despair than when they walked in. That changed 2 years ago when we were one of the courts that requested that Pierre Kent consider Renton as the site for their newest court-based peer navigator, and they said yes. They said yes, they chose Renton because the Renton court and Renton city leaders get it. Because they saw that we understand that holding people accountable for their actions does not mean checking compassion at the door. Now we say, I cannot begin to know what you're going through. I cannot begin to imagine your pain, but I do know you're capable of so much more. And to help you navigate your journey to a happy and healthier life, I'd like to introduce you to Joaquin Delgado from Pierre Kent, because he has been where you are. He wants to walk alongside of you. He understands your experience. He wants to show you that you can overcome the things that are holding you back from being all that you can be, because he overcame all of those things that held him back from being who he wanted to be. Ken is available at every calendar to meet with people. He's present at the jail daily for our jail calendar. He connects people with food and housing and treatment and schooling and jobs and transportation. And for those who work with him, it is the first time in years that many of them see the light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel. We are seeing hope and optimism in the face of more court users since Pierre Kent has a presence in our court. We are seeing lives changed. There is nothing better than having a previous defendant who thinks you never believed in them walk back into your courtroom after their case is closed and say, "Judge, look at me now." It is the best feeling ever. As most of you know, during COVID, we had to quickly find a way to continue court operations in a building that was shut down and people couldn't gather in person. Although I know another local jurisdiction takes credit for being the first court on Zoom, they are not. They were not. I will go to my death with my calendar. I won't say which one they were, but they were not. They actually went to Teams and it didn't work. We went to Zoom and it did work. And then they later joined us in Zoom land. When in-person hearings were not permitted, we were able to set up virtual courtrooms almost immediately and continue court operations. When COVID restrictions were lifted, we allowed our virtual proceedings to continue. And while there are many benefits to virtual proceedings, which will be discussed in a moment by Judge Janier, we began to see some glaring shortcomings of virtual hearings as well. Whether we need to remand someone into custody because they are before us charged with their 5th DUI, or for yet another assault against their spouse in the presence of their children, or they are joining others in the courtroom in a thunderous round of applause because someone has just hit a sobriety milestone, there are moments when personal engagement is critical. This also allows face-to-face contact between our court users and their attorneys. It allows face-to-face interaction with court users and our peer navigator. But we do not want the return to in-person hearings to be a barrier to access to justice.
Prior to making the determination that it was appropriate to begin bringing back some of our calendars back to in-person calendars, we took the time to meet with stakeholders, to listen to them, to hear what their experiences were like. And one thing that we all agreed on is there is a difference. There's a difference for the court user. There's a difference for the alleged victim sitting in the courtroom when they have somebody in person to either sit beside them, whether that be a victim advocate sitting beside an alleged victim, or to have an attorney sitting next to their client so that they can do something as simple as mute their microphone, lean over, and explain a legal concept to that client. There is a difference in the quality of services that are provided to those people in our community. And so we don't want the return to in-person hearings, although we see so many benefits, to be a barrier to accessing justice. We know that, on the other hand, there are reasons why hybrid court calendars do solve some community needs. We have some calendars that are maintaining virtual options, our motions calendars, our trial confirmation, our photo enforcement, and our infraction calendars, our impound calendars, arraignments, reviews, and of course our score and custody calendar. The intent is trying to strike a balance. It's trying to strike a balance between improving access to services, connecting people to resources, to have the opportunity, as Judge Murphy-Richards just described, to sit next to Mr. Delgado and have a conversation with him before or after or during court sometimes. But also wanting to balance the need to provide for elder care, for child care, for employment reasons. And so we're trying to strike, although not the perfect balance. I don't know if perfection is ever possible, but the best and the closest that we can come to that. For those calendars that are currently or will be in person in the future, there is a court rule, it's called Court Rule 3.4, that allows attorneys to waive their client's presence. So even in circumstances where we do have an all in-person calendar and that person simply can't make it due to a medical reason, due to an employment reason, they are able to make prior arrangements with their attorney to have their presence waived, have their attorney appear there on their behalf, and that will allow them to get that balance that they need. The court can also find good cause to have people come in person on an otherwise virtual calendar. So we're looking again for those ways to build in flexibility that accommodates the needs of our community and the needs of individual court users and the cases that they need to appear on. We want to ensure access to justice without compromising on our delivery of court services and meaningful court engagement.
For some reason, our staff thinks we work from 8:30 to 4:30, but like many of you, Your workday is only the beginning of your involvement with your job. So we have decided to highlight just some of our community outreach programs, but I know that many of you are familiar that there are many more that did not make this list. The first one we wanted to highlight is Law Day. In May of this year, we had our first annual Law Day. Several of you were involved in that. Thank you for your involvement. That was attended by 210 Renton 7th graders from McKnight Middle School, from Renton Christian, and from Dimmitt Middle School. Students spent an hour each with a team from the court, a team of lawmakers, and a team of police officers that included our four-footed furry officer, Xander. I might say he was kind of the favorite of the day. We got some great feedback and some really great ideas to make Law Day 2025 even better, and we plan to have our second annual Law Day next May.
And I would just share, she makes it sound so easy to plan to host 210 seventh graders. But Kara is actually a member of our statewide public outreach committee. So she's not only working to promote this event here in our city to benefit our community, but also to make this opportunity available statewide to young students across the state. So we really, as you can tell, believe in empowering young people with the opportunity to engage with the justice system, to begin thinking about their rights and their protections and future career opportunities within the court system, whatever that looks like for them. And so with that goal in mind, we created Constitution Day, and we are in 2024 going to be very proud to launch our third annual Constitution Day, in which we get to spend the day, if you're not aware, September 17th every year is National Constitution Day. It's a national day of recognition. And so we actually spend that day, or the work day for the teachers as closest to that day possible, in our schools, educating our students on what our federal and our state constitutions mean. How do they impact students even at a very young age? And often this is many of these students' first opportunities to engage with the concept of what the law is, or to engage with the idea of what a judge is. We work hard to build connections between how the work of our court impacts our communities and their families.
Whether it is a classroom of third graders trying to unravel the great bubblegum caper, the Dimmitt Middle School trial based on the classic novel The Outsiders, or the classical Christian homeschool group seeking a verdict for civil liability on the case of Larry the Crane, Judge Denier and I are often in the field visiting aspiring lawyers in their classrooms, or welcoming them into our courtrooms for a more realistic experience. We're actually welcoming more and more of them. Word is getting out that we invite them to the courtroom, and now everybody wants to come to the courtroom. I am 100% confident that the seeds of a future career in law have been planted during many of these trials.
And if we're not planting those seeds in the courtroom, we're taking it into the classroom. We work very hard to serve as judges in the classroom, which is actually a separate program from our Constitution Day, because with our Constitution Day, we're there for a specific purpose on a specific time of year. But for judges in the classroom, we take the work of a trial court into classrooms. And that includes not just the mock trials that Kara was talking about, it's spending time listening to questions, and students ask very good questions. You've probably all experienced that in your roles. Sometimes very complicated, very deep questions. But we're committed to engaging with students at their level, to meeting their needs where they are, whether that be in their curriculum or in their community.
We are asked, encouraged, required, feels like required. We are encouraged to be on at least one work group or one committee. Jessica and I tend to be a bit of overachievers when it comes to our judicial colleagues. And so I'm currently serving on the Public Outreach Committee, the Council for Independent Courts, and during COVID began what's called MJBR, which is Municipal Judges Breakout Room. It is a virtual group that meets regularly to support other municipal court judges, to discuss changes in the law, and to bring some uniformity to the delivery of services by municipal courts across the region. And while my level of involvement in the judicial community may sound like a lot, brace yourself. I won't embarrass you. I might. Judge Denier is on the executive board for the DMCJA, currently serving as the board's treasurer and secretary. She is on the education committee, the diversity committee, the alternatives to incarceration committee, the statewide Governor's True Blood Task Force. She's a JASP volunteer, which is a program that's used to provide support to other judges who are in crisis. It is a big deal to be selected as an advocate and mentor for that program, and she was selected recently for that. And she's a member of the Washington Judges Foundation. Judge Denier does not do this to pad her resume. She does it to make sure Renton is well represented and to make sure that the two of us are able to stay on the cutting edge of processes and procedures throughout the state.
Which is a very easy transition, speaking of cutting edge, to our next aspect of our presentation, which is technology. We are continuing to embrace our ongoing commitment to innovation. Renton has a reputation statewide amongst our court partners of being known for innovation. We actually created the software platform, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a moment, that is implemented statewide in terms of case management in its present state. But we are continuing to look for more. What can we do not only to make justice more accessible to our community, but to improve court efficiency, to use resources in order to make sure that we are being the best stewards of the resources that our community has bestowed upon us. One of those initiatives is implementing text message reminders for our court users. This is a part of our ongoing work to provide the best customer service possible, whether that be sending a text reminder to a youth court team member saying, don't forget, we have 2 hearings scheduled for tomorrow and you're signed up to participate, or to remind somebody that they have court scheduled and they need to appear for their arraignment or their pretrial hearing or their review hearing. The main driving force in this initiative is to reduce the numbers of failures to appear and therefore to reduce the number of bench warrants that are issued out of a court. A bench warrant can cause somebody to be picked up and incarcerated and booked into our system. It can cost additional resources in terms of court staff time in processing bench warrants. And this is a big portion of why we'd like to remind people that they have court so they have the opportunity to meaningfully attend and engage rather than have a warrant issued. We also, as we talked a little bit about earlier, are maintaining virtual access to court calendars. We are always looking at ways to improve customer service during these calendars. We talked about kind of some of the costs and benefits of having individuals appear virtually. But one of the things that we are looking at and we are beginning to implement for our virtual calendars is information sharing during the calendar. Not only do we have a welcome video that we play that explains step by step what users can expect during their court experience that day, but we actually also include slides which have information on options for how to proceed that day that are kept up on Zoom hearings, particularly our infraction calendar, so that drivers who are not familiar with the court system can understand what options they have in resolving their traffic ticket. Some people are audio learners, some people are visual, and we're working to accommodate all of those learning styles. We're also working to remove barriers to court attendance through our virtual calendars. At this point in time, we're still maintaining our remote jury selection. And again, the goal in that is to have a wider portion of our community have the opportunity to participate in the jury selection process by removing concerns about, trying to balance work and jury service, trying to balance childcare and jury service. Our goal is to make service more accessible so that not only do our community members have a more meaningful opportunity to engage as part of our juries, but also that our court users are experiencing a broader cross-section of our community when they do have a jury trial. We also work to authorize appearances for individuals who are incarcerated in other jurisdictions. So as you likely know, we are a SCORE stakeholders, so we do have our daily SCORE calendar, but for individuals who are incarcerated in the Department of Corrections, the King County Justice Center, they now have the ability through Zoom to log in to appear for court in Renton to get their warrants quashed, to show up to be accountable for their cases, even if they're incarcerated in another jurisdiction. And as promised, I do want to go back very quickly to our OCourt software. Renton actually developed and piloted the OCourt software, which is a live editing software platform that allows not only us as judges to be working on paperwork for court users, but to allow court users to be able to watch their paperwork be created on a screen in front of them, to have their attorney make any changes or edits, and for all of us to sign it electronically. This has been expanded to more than 40 jurisdictions statewide and counting. As we look ahead as a court of limited jurisdiction, we are going to be, by state law, we are going to be migrating to a statewide, newly revamped and revised Court of Limited Jurisdiction case management system. This OCourt software was so important, it actually impacted the development of what that migration would look like. And the developers of the new CMS, case management system, have incorporated OCourt's software into their development and migration plan. We will be looking forward to this for phase 5 in that rollout, which is coming very quickly at us in only a couple of years. This is going to be a significant undertaking. It is going to require large-scale modifications of our operations, our team training. We do have one of our supervisors who is currently serving on the technology committee in order to help us remain on the forefront of what these developments are looking like and to meaningfully contribute to our court community. But regardless of how fast that comes at us, we are confident that Renton Municipal Court will continue to be a leader in improving access to justice through applied technology.
We promised you at the beginning, Jason, that we wouldn't go past 5:45. So I know we have one slide left. I know we had a little bit of troubleshooting. I'd rather defer the last slide to show the 70-second video if it's been fixed, but if it's not been fixed, can we try it? Yeah, sorry.
Sam, do you want to try?
As a
Go ahead.
judge,
Sam's in the back.
most days,
No.
Me.
it doesn't feel like you've made a difference. And as a judge, most
right.
days,
I can send the video to the council
when you
later.
care so much about the people.
Yeah,
that
I'll
you
send the video
serve,
to the council later. So
and you realize
anyway, we know you have a reception coming up, so if you want to know what our last
they
slide's
care
about,
about
come
you.
visit us on the 3rd floor, sorry.
And so
We're just
throughout
talking
the
about some
years
plans
of
we
my
have to
time
improve
on
some,
the bench,
improve some programs,
I
but
have
we'd be happy to
clung
chat with you about that
tightly
offline.
to the success
So we
stories.
can
Thank you.
respect-
of people
Thank you so
who I have
much,
shown
judges.
grace to,
Our time is
shown
tight, but I
compassion
will
to,
accept a couple
who
of
took
questions.
advantage of the
there any
opportunity to get
questions?
the services they need.
If you have one, go ahead.
So if someone is ready to
I was gonna make a quick comment, but
You can make your comment.
I was going to say for those who didn't get a chance, the law day was a lot of fun. So next year, so any of my colleagues, if you get a chance to do it, I think it's well worth the time. And I know at least one action that I'm in the process of taking that came from out of the mouths of babes, a question that somebody had, and hopefully it'll turn out well. So get a chance to do it.
Councilmember Rivera.
I'll second that. I also participated in Law Day and it was amazing. It was one of the highlights and I thoroughly appreciate it. Anything you ever need, please let us know. This is my favorite presentation usually of the year. It's the State of the Court because it's such a highlight to all of the incredible work. A 7.6 recidivism rate is gold. In terms of rehabilitation, it is gold. We should be so proud of that, shouting it from the rooftops. I'm so grateful to you. The only question I do have is in regards to Pure Renton. I remember when I was chair of community services that we were hearing that Pure Renton was going to be starting January 2024, something around there. It's now July. I have heard no updates. Do we have an update?
I will only, and at one point in the very beginning of these conversations, I was involved in a couple of meetings with the owners of Pure Washington. That involved a bunch of city leaders. When Guy Williams was at that meeting, he said September 2023.
Yeah.
And then the meetings continued. I believe the person who was leading the effort then went back to another division that she was previously chairing out of all the movement that was happening at the time. And so the conversations happened every time we are with Pure Washington leadership, and we ask them, they just tell us we're still in conversation. We do not yet have a building. Right? Is that correct? That's correct. We do not have a building. They have hired people in anticipation of Pure Renton. They have put the plan in place for Pure Renton, but they have not yet secured a space, is what I'm being told by Pure Washington leadership.
Thank you. It's unfortunate to hear that what's holding us back from being the first contracted city to have a Pure Washington partnership, to be the first. I mean, Renton is the first of many things because we're so incredible, right? But this would be just a cherry on top of the cake. And it's sad to hear that the one thing that's holding us back is not having the space for it. And hopefully we can find a solution to that quickly, because I imagine we can probably try to find some space. But thank you.
Pure Kent found a building. Pure Olympia found a building. Pure Seattle has a building.
So
So
can't let Kent and Olympia show us up like that.
anyway,
Judges Murphy Richards and Janier, thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. This committee of the whole is adjourned.
thank you very much. See you. See you across.